On December morning in 1832, a farmer by the name of John Durfee was starting his routine at his farm along the Quequichin River when he came upon a sight that made him stop cold. Hanging from a haypole on his farm was a woman, a cord knotted about her neck. Her body was stiff and icy. Her half-open eyes stared blankly, revealing she had obviously passed in an apparent suicide, though her knees were bent under her and her toes touched the ground. It appeared that the cord must have slipped after death and let her feet touch the earth. The woman was soon identified as Sarah Maria Cornell, a worker in the textile mills. Her death shocked Fall River, but the mystery of how she came to hang in that frozen field was to haunt the city for centuries. Fall River in the 1830s was a place of contradictions. Its mills roared with prosperity, but its streets told a harsher story. Factory girls, many only in their teens, worked endless hours in suffocating rooms, their lives dictated by bells and overseers. They lived in crowded boarding houses, clinging to one another for companionship in a world that saw them as expendable. By day, the mills promised wages. By night, the shadows promised peril. Rumors spread quickly in such a town, and after Sarah's death, whispers carried through taverns and boarding houses alike. Some insisted she had indeed taken her own life. Others who knew her swore she was not of that mind, but had confided a fear of some threat, nameless, that filled her with the dread of some impending doom. Sarah had last been seen alive the evening before her body was discovered. Several witnesses reported she had left for the Durfee farm in good spirits, but with an air of apprehension. Of the purpose for her evening excursion she had not spoken. Her disappearance did not immediately spark alarm in a factory town. Girls sometimes vanished for a night or two, staying with friends or stealing moments of freedom from their grueling schedules. But when dawn revealed her corpse, the questions began. While Sarah's death had initially been assumed as a suicide, the coroner's inquests began to reveal unsettling facts. The cord around Sarah's neck was tied in a clove hitch, an unusual and impracticable knot to use for a noose. Such a knot would have been very difficult for Sarah to tie around her own neck, and a clove hitch was not a slip knot that would tighten under pressure unless pulled at both ends. How was it that the cord had been pulled so lethally tight around her neck? The coroner also noticed some of her clothing was torn. Grass stains were on her dress, and her body had bruising, all signs of a struggle. Even more disturbing was the discovery that Sarah was 4 months pregnant. The child she carried was the silent witness to her final hours, and its existence hinted at a secret Sarah had confided to no one fully, though fragments of the truth emerged in the testimony of friends. She had spoken of a man, older, respected, yet dangerous. A man whose downfall would be certain if their connection were revealed. Then something truly shocking was discovered. As the landlord cleared out the personal effects left of the now deceased Sarah Maria Cornell, a letter was found, written in Sarah's handwriting. It read, "If I should be missing, inquire of the Reverend Mr. Avery. Of Bristol he will know where I am. December 20th. Signed, Sarah M. Cornell." Reverend Ephraim Kingsbury Avery was a Methodist minister with sharp features, a commanding presence, and a reputation that was equal parts pious and severe. He had come to Fall River to guide the souls of its workers. Months earlier, Sarah had petitioned to join the local Methodist congregation, and Reverend Avery, granting her probationary membership, had assigned himself personally to her pastoral care. Avery denied impropriety, but troubling details emerged. Sarah had written that letter naming him, clearly fearful that Avery might choose to dispose of her out of convenience as she petitioned him to make arrangements to provide for their child. Friends recalled her saying he had promised her protection, perhaps even marriage. And yet, as her pregnancy advanced, she grew more fearful. On the night of her death, witnesses placed Avery near the scenes. His timeline wavered under scrutiny. He had motive, opportunity, and a damning connection to the victim. Eventually, the evidence mounted, and Ephraim Avery was arrested on January 20th, 1833. Powerful forces formed battle lines. The Methodist Church, powerful and influential, aligned with Avery, eager to protect the reputation of their minister and avoid scandal. On the opposing side, the factory owners, already under attack for poor working conditions at the mills, saw opportunity to demonstrate their benevolence for the safety and well-being of their mill workers by seeing justice done for Sarah. The trial that followed became one of the earliest media spectacles in American crime. Newspapers carried daily reports, each more lurid than the last. Crowds swelled outside the courthouse, eager to see whether a man of the cloth could truly stand convicted of murder. The prosecution painted a chilling portrait. Avery, desperate to protect his reputation, had lured Sarah into isolation and strangled her. They read her letters aloud in court, her voice from beyond the grave naming him as her murderer. The defense struck back with equal ferocity. Sarah, they argued, was unstable, prone to melancholy, and had ended her own life. They portrayed her not as a victim, but as a fallen woman whose despair had overtaken her. They leaned heavily on Avery's position as a minister, insisting that such a man could not, would not, commit murder. After days of testimony and nights of feverish speculation, the jury rendered its decision. Ephraim Avery was acquitted. The gasp that swept through the courtroom echoed across Fall River to mill workers and laborers. The verdict was confirmation of their worst suspicions, that the powerful could sin without consequence, and that the justice system bent easily under the weight of wealth and influence. To Avery's supporters, it was divine proof of his innocence. But acquittal did not mean absolution. Crowds jeered him in the streets. Mobs threatened his safety. Avery made great efforts to restore his reputation. He embarked on a speaking tour to vindicate himself in the eyes of the public. He published an account of the trial, arguing how the acquittal had proved his innocence. But all his efforts were in vain. In 1836, his name forever tainted, his ministry in ruins. Avery left the Methodist ministry, moving his family several times. Continuously hounded by the public and the press, they finally settled in Ohio, where he toiled out the rest of his days as a farmer. Ephraim Kingsbury Avery shed his mortal coil on October 23, 1869, and faced his final judgment. Though the incident ended, Fall River did not forget. A cautionary tale about the dangers of power and the vulnerability of women who had little to shield them. Some swore her ghost lingered near the mill yards, a pale figure in the winter mist. Today, Sarah Maria Cornell's body lies in a lonely grave in Fall River's Oak Grove Cemetery. Her headstone is not far from that of Lizzie Borden and doesn't seem to attract much attention. If you are ever in the area, do stop and spend a moment with her. Sarah's ghosts would be happy to know that nearly 200 years later, her story is still told, and her life still remembered.